What's going on, Colts Nation? I appreciate you joining me for another video where in this one, I want to talk a little bit more about the defense, specifically the edge rusher position. There was something that I had seen on Twitter and I thought it was interesting. It had been mentioned to me before. And I just thought, there's really not a way that this is going to happen. But the more I looked into it, the more I thought, maybe it is something that could be entertained, right? And how would that look? Who knows? But I think we could get a possible edge rush help for much cheaper than what Trey Hendrickson is going for. And who knows what the Bengals are going to do, right? You trade for a guy that's 30 years old, even though he's still highly productive. Who knows if the Bengals are going to want to let him go? They still think they have a chance this year, even though I feel like it's pretty clear that even with Joe Burrow in there, I didn't think they really had a chance. But now they don't have Joe Burrow, and I don't think they have a chance. But getting Trey Hendrickson we would have to do some gymnastics to make that work, right? Some cap room gymnastics to make that work. So I started wondering, would there be another option? I remember my friend who is a Giants fan, he mentioned to me when we were talking about the Indy pass rush being really one of the things that the Colts need to work on if we're really going to be, an elite team and be able to contend for a championship. And he mentioned to me, well, do you think you guys would ever trade for Kayvon Thibodeau? And I thought that was interesting. And then the very next day, right, I ended up seeing something on Twitter where they were talking about how teams are calling and being interested in Kayvon Thibodeau. Now, this comes from NFL Rumors on Twitter, so we'll see what that is. Of course, the 49ers are involved in those conversations. At least that's what NFL Rumors are saying. And so, right, they just lost Nick Bosa. They're going to be involved with different trade talks when it comes to edge rushers, whether it's Kayvon Thibodeau, Trey Hendrickson, if that's possible for anybody. So we'll see, what comes of that. But if Kayvon Thibodeau is somebody that's available, right? And this is a conversation that was had last year. People were talking about the Giants getting rid of Kayvon Thibodeau last year and him being on the trade market. And then they end up drafting Abdul Carter this year. So it seems like this might be more possible now than it was before. They've already traded for and paid Brian Burns. They already have a lot of money invested into the edge room. They drafted Abdul Carter. First round picks have guaranteed contracts and they're not cheap. Right, so with the fifth-year option already being picked up for Kayvon Thibodeau, we would have him if we did trade for him. We'd have him this year and in 2026, right? So you at least get 2 years of a guy to be able to see what he can do. And my thinking here is, well, all these other young stars keep being disappointing in New York, and then they leave and they become great again. So what if Kayvon Thibodeau could be the next one? Right. So I just think it's a conversation worth having. Looking at his numbers, his rookie season, he appeared in 14 games, had 4 sacks, 49 tackles, 5 passes defended, and 2 forced fumbles. So as a rookie, pretty good year, right? And then the very next season in 2023, that was his best season in 2023, where he ended up with 11 and a half sacks, 50 total tackles, 12 tackles for loss, 26 solo tackles, 4 passes defended, 3 forced fumbles, and 44 pressures, right? So overall, really good season. Getting into the double-digit numbers in the NFL, especially for a second-year defensive end, just really good stuff that Kayvon Thibodeau was putting on tape. Now, since then, numbers come down a bit. In 2024, he dealt with a wrist injury and had to work back from that. His sack totals dropped to 5.5 last year, even with missing 5 games. And of course, I think kind of the cherry on top of this whole thing is that Kayvon Thibodeau, in one of his sacks last year, it was against the Colts when the Colts were fighting for a playoff spot at the end of the year. And in Week 17, a must-win game in New York, we end up with Kayvon Thibodeau, who gets a strip sack at the end of the game to help eliminate the Colts from playoff contention. So it would be poetic justice. Hey, this guy affected us. He helped us missed the playoffs. Let's bring him in. Let's make him a part of this rotation, right? And we have a guy that's currently playing on his 5th-year option, a guy that the Giants wouldn't have to keep if they don't want to, right? And I'm going to keep talking about that. You want to get rid of somebody for an edge rusher, we can trade edge rusher for edge rusher and add a 6th-round pick on top with Kwity Paye, right? A guy that's playing on his 5th-year option. We get in return a guy that has this year and then his 5th-year option season. I think that would be a pretty good trade. Again, not incredibly expensive. So I just think overall, now he was drafted 5th overall in his draft class. And again, those contracts aren't cheap, and I didn't look up the numbers, but Kwity Paye's making $13 million this year. I imagine at least for this season, you wouldn't have to mess around with the numbers too much to bring Kayvon Thibodeau is. Now, I don't know what his 5th-year contract numbers are, and how that's going to look. Probably more than Kwity Paye's $13 million, but nonetheless, I think we can figure that out, and they be able to crunch those numbers and figure out a way to make that work. But I just think this is a guy that has all the tools to be great. Now there is some question about, reliability in the run game. There's questions about, there are times where he kind of just disappears in a game and you don't really see him getting a whole lot. But I think if you, again, a guy that can leave New York and be great, I think Kayvon Thibodeau could be another guy on that list. Somebody who, again, in one season had 44 pressures, 11 and a half sacks. If you can get that kind of production from somebody, even if he's a starter and he's part of a rotation of guys, if he can be one of the key guys on the field for us and be able to help us to get to the quarterback more and make quarterbacks have to, step up in the pocket where Buck and Grove are going to live, then I think that's helpful. Right, and we've seen Latu do that. Latu's not getting the sack numbers, but just in the Tennessee game, Latu coming around the edge and forcing Cam Ward up helped us get at least one sack. I think there was another one that I saw. I didn't go back and look at the tape, but just as I was watching live and some of the highlights that I've seen over the last couple of days, seemingly Latu forcing the quarterback up in the pocket into the big boys in the middle does help for what it's worth. Now, of course, again, we need Latu to become a finisher, get to the quarterback, bring the quarterback down. But then if you have Kayvon Thibodeau with the pedigree that he has, the numbers that he's shown he can put up through an NFL season, even on a bad football team, I think it's possible you have those two on the edge and you see an uptick in what we're able to do in terms of our edge rush pressures. So, again, this is just something I saw, so it's something I looked into. Right, as soon as my buddy said something about it, I was like, I don't know how possible that is. But then I saw that, teams like the 49ers do have interest in trading for a guy like Kayvon Thibodeau. So I looked into it, and it is something that I think could be possible for the Colts. Will they want to go out and do that? I'm sure as it sits right now, they continue to look at the evaluation of every game and what we're able to do. And they're trying to figure out, okay, what can we make work for us? Is there any situation that we can make work for us for what could potentially be out there? We of course have to worry about the future, right? If you want to bring in a big contract guy, then we might lose out on somebody like a Nick Cross or an Alec Pierce, right? We're going to need DeForest Buckner, if he's going to keep playing past his contract's coming up. Quentin Nelson, he better retire at Colts, so we're going to need to pay him. Michael Pittman Jr. didn't sign the longest contract of all time, so we're going to need to pay him. Jonathan Taylor's contract, also not a very long one. We're going to need to pay him soon. Like, there's plenty of things that have to happen already on this roster, so trading for somebody, the more I look into our situation and what we need for the future, the less I think that a possible trade could happen because of the situation that we're in and looking toward the future of how this team needs to be built for us to continue to be contenders, especially if we end up paying Daniel Jones, right? You pay a quarterback a bigger salary, that's going to take up a big chunk of the salary cap, and you're going to be able to build less around it. So, we have the benefit of having our starting quarterback make $14 million this year, but it's not always going to be like that. Right. So as we go forward, I'm going to continue to look at, how this roster needs to be built for now and how this roster needs to be built for the future. Those are definitely conversations. Those future conversations are definitely ones that are going to be had sooner rather than later with the way this team's performing. I really just wanted to wait to see how we looked coming into the season before we started talking about next year. Right. Because if we weren't winning games, then everybody's gone. Like, for the most part, everybody's gone. We're going to let guys that should have retired Colts go somewhere else because we're not having success and we need to rebuild this thing. But with us having success, I think the conversations are certainly changing, and so the conversations we'll have here on this channel will change with it. And again, those will happen very soon. And as mentioned in the video a little while ago, we are going to have another video later today on the injury report and how that's looking for both the Colts and the Rams. So and again, plenty more content as we go through the week, continuing to examine this matchup with the Rams. So do me a favor. Go ahead, hit that like button if you're enjoying the content. Let me know what you guys think about this Kayvon Thibodeaux thing down in the comment section. I'd love to hear your guys' opinion on all this. And of course, make sure you're subscribed with notifications on so you get notified anytime we drop any content on this channel. We'll also be live for the game at 4 o'clock on Sunday. So make sure you come by, hang out. Should be a good time either way. And of course, I appreciate you stopping by for another video. And as always, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and go Colts.